Well, hi everybody. Welcome back to another Chris EV Road Trips video. Tonight we've just got one Ian. Ian, how are you going tonight?
Good, thank you. Yeah, we were going to bring someone else, but their name wasn't Ian, so they wouldn't bother
Yeah,
finding.
no worries. So tonight's conversation we're trying to move a little bit away from cars, and we're gonna talk about artificial intelligence, and we're going to talk about artificial intelligence in the car industry, and also beyond the car industry. What's the ramifications for humankind if these robots really start to take off? So I think we should first of all start with Ian. What would you say artificial intelligence is? What's a definition?
Well, one of the I saw this thing where the CEO of Microsoft's AI division, Mustafa Suleyman,
Yeah.
was asked the question of what is AI, and he came up by his nephew at breakfast, and he was trying to come up with a definition of what it was. And there's a whole video on it, which you can find on a TED Talk. But his main conclusion was, closest to conclusion was, it's like a new species. And it's almost like a new form of life.
Yes, because I think the thing that most people are concerned about is how fast is that new form of life going to change everything we know about how things are done in a world where we don't rely on artificial intelligence at the moment. But how fast is that going to change, do you think?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. I mean, if you look at it, humans were the first species to evolve their tools. So other species actually use tools, but they never actually evolve them and pass them on generation to generation with the tools themselves evolving. And the end result is, if you look at humans of 50,000 years ago, they look like nothing like humans of today, because our tools, which include our clothes, our buildings, and everything else, keep evolving. And they evolve far faster than biology. So if the technology part evolves faster than biology, then where this species that's taken over the world is this combination of the fast evolving technology and biology, well, the AI and robots is the technology without the anchor of the biology.
Yeah.
So it could evolve far faster than us.
Correct. Yeah. So that's what bothers me a lot, because we might start with these robots with working in a car factory, putting wheels on cars, and then the next week they're doing like 10 other jobs that they've learned in the process of watching how people do their work, and they're basically copied what other people have done, and now they're doing 10 times more jobs than what they were doing last week or something.
Yeah, and of course you've possibly got 1 million of those same type of robots around the world, all watching and uploading what they learn to the cloud, so that they can learn. Even if each robot learns one new thing every day, that means every robot has access to 1 million new things every day.
Yeah, so we're talking exponential growth of what we've never ever seen before. So when this does start, it's going to go in a big way, I should imagine.
Yeah, yes. And so we have at the moment that Elon Musk seems to have shifted his focus from as strong on the EV side of Tesla to the robot and AI side. And I think he's much more vested at the moment with what's happening there as the most exciting place. He said things like, Tesla has no value without the self-driving and the technology, and that the robot side of the business could be bigger than the EV side in a very short period of time.
Without a doubt. Yeah, I can't see Tesla's going to be just another car company trying to compete with the Chinese, I think. So I think he might have realized that he's not going to be able to compete with these guys because they're just too good at what they do. And it's going to be a case of who's got the best robots, I guess. So why not get in early on the robots?
Yeah. And even on the robots, there's so many robots now.
Yeah.
I made a list on a page of 12 different manufacturers of humanoid robots.
Right.
That are all equipped with this merging of AI and a humanoid form robot, which we're now seeing. I think it's UB Tech has them in factories in China now, working on cars in early stage. Obviously Tesla
Xiaomi
has.
does it, I think Xiaomi has humanoid robot. Xiaomi apparently has humanoid robots.
I haven't seen a Xiaomi humanoid robot yet.
Yeah.
But they may have. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. They certainly make. They have divisions that make everything.
Yeah.
So you can buy robot vacuums, robot window cleaners, and all the old specialist robots, but they're not general purpose robots.
Yeah.
That's a whole now outmoded class of robots in a sense.
Yeah. So, and everybody loves the thought of cars getting cheaper. Do you think if cars are made by robots, do you think the price of cars is going to come down even further?
Yeah, well, you'd think it would. I mean, and it's the interesting one is that, China's the cheapest place to make cars at the moment. And one of the reasons it's the cheapest place to make cars is because labor in China is cheap, or has been. There's now starting to be cheaper places, but it's been really cheap. And I mean, you take a car, I've seen figures that there's something like 40 hours labor in putting together the car. But then the car has a whole lot of sub-assemblies from different suppliers that have also have labor components in them. So there's probably as much as 100 hours of total labor in the whole from beginning to end of the car. And if your labor was just $10 an hour, then it would come down from $1,000 worth of the raw cost in a car, which is before it goes through all the add-on costs, through to maybe as low as $1 an hour. And I mean, $10 an hour, even in China, is very low for actual costs, because the cost of a worker is more than what you pay the worker.
Yeah.
You've got to house the worker and administer them and all the things that you just don't have to do with robots.
Superannuation.
I don't know they have superannuation in China. I don't know how it works, but yeah.
Yeah. So for our perspective, it's going to be good because probably cheap cars are going to become cheaper to make. Well,
you can also make them anywhere, because if anywhere you've got the robots, it'll cost the same.
Yes. So we were talking about this earlier, and they said, well, where's the best place to build robots, Ian? What do you think?
Well, logically, to some extent, once you've got the first ones that you can use to build more, you may as well build the robots closer to the source of materials. So wherever the main materials come from.
Yeah. So you find where your raw materials are, and you put one robot there, and then he makes everything to start a whole factory of making robots in a.
And then you use those robots to make cars and other things.
Yep. Yeah.
Where once again, where the materials are, which are even more significant for a car than a robot, because cars are bigger than robots.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of raw materials required. So we might see them out in the back of Western Australia someday, building cars in Western Australia. You won't have to haul that iron ore across the world.
Yeah. Make the batteries where the lithium is.
Yeah. We got lithium and we got iron ore. So I think we're pretty well.
I think we've got a bit of phosphate too.
Yeah. So,
but who knows what the future will be? I mean, you've got the Queensland University with their aluminium graphene batteries. I don't know if you've seen those.
No, I haven't. I don't really pay much attention to battery technology until it's actually in production. Because you've got people like Toyota.
There's always 10 new technologies right on the horizon, about to emerge.
Yeah.
But as people have pointed out, and Toyota keeps saying that it's about to emerge in 3 years, every 3 years.
Yeah, they've ruined it for me, Toyota. There's too many false starts with those guys. They're just making things up as they go along, trying to sabotage the EV industry.
Well, slow it down, perhaps. I mean, there's this problem with most of the cars you make are not EVs, then your per unit cost of the EV is lower than the ones you make mostly.
Right. And just another offshoot of artificial intelligence is obviously the self-driving development of self-driving. I've seen demonstrations in China and the US now for years about how they show it actually working. But when do you think seriously that they'll ever get it onto the real roads and the government will be happy with this?
Well, there's 3 phases in a sense. There's one, getting it to be quite universal, which they seem to be getting close to. But there's that paradox of what's his name? The fellow with the paradox, Moravec's paradox. That what's easy for humans is hard for AI, and what's easy for AI is hard for humans, which means that, it's like you get in a car that's driving. The very first time you get in a car that's even got radar cruise control, and it feels like it's almost self-driving. It's almost there. And the first time I was in one of those was back in 2010. And they haven't come as far since 2010 as they seem to come in that first step.
Right. So Elon Musk expected it to be here years ago, but obviously there's more. That very last 1% seems to take 100% of the time. So,
well, a lot of the time. So the first thing is they've got to get better than humans, but then they've got to get better enough than humans that it's deemed acceptable. Because if you're driving and you make a mistake and you have an accident, it's your fault.
Yeah.
But if the car's driving and it has an accident, it's potentially the manufacturer's fault, which means someone's got liability other than the person who's got the injury, and it becomes a whole lot more complex. I mean, it's already the fact that, if you cause someone else an accident, the third party's problematic, but then it's another level of accidents that involve hurting the driver or causing loss to the driver.
Yeah, it's a bit of a legal minefield as well. So
yeah, and then there's sort of governments actually passing it as the third phase. So it could easily be as much as 10 years before it's widespread. Easily, I think.
Sure. Oh. Yeah, it could come to a stage where there's so many legal issues with it that it just won't get off the ground because there's just too much liability on companies that
No, I think they'll get past it, but I think that it'll take time.
And I don't know. Yeah, so it's this, and the next one is the robo taxi. Is I think Tesla's building another factory in China now. I think they announced. Do you know anything about that? Is it a robo taxi factory, or is it a robot factory, or do we know anything about that?
Tesla's next big announcement supposed to be in August. They're announcing something about robotaxi.
Mm-hmm.
And that they've come out with and said is official. They're going to announce something in August, but then they announced the Tesla Roadster back in 2017. And I think they took as many as 1,000 orders where they had a full 250,000 each paid for them, which is $250 million worth of deposits or something. Right. And it was something like that anyway. It's a huge amount that's been all the time. But anyway, the point being that sometimes things take a while after the announcement.
Yeah.
But they're working on things, and they're working on things in China, but exactly where it fits, Why they would be more advanced than Baidu in China, I don't know. Both Baidu and Tesla work on self-driving that doesn't rely on LiDAR, which I think is encouraging. And they both seem to work on it that doesn't require the territory to be fully mapped. I mean, they require sufficient mapping to navigate to a destination, but they don't require sort of every metre of the road to be mapped, because they can work it out as they go along, which makes it a lot more reliable if something changes, like something's dropped on the road or there's some obstacle or something and you have to get around it, rather than if you don't see it on the map, it's not there.
Yeah. And just for everybody who may not know, who is Baidu?
Baidu is basically called the Chinese Google.
So a company vests with a lot of artificial intelligence going on.
Yes, a lot of artificial intelligence going on, just like, the non-Chinese Google has a lot of artificial intelligence going on.
And so with robots, if they do become, we get this exponential growth happening, where does that leave the human race? as we'll be able to with robots for jobs if they get good.
Elon Musk has come out and said there'll be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. And the pace is a question, but ultimately that's probably correct. And that's a big debate, probably worth a whole separate video of the stages of where that go, with people proposing things like universal basic income. And then there are reasons why that isn't a full answer. So, and you get this whole thing of people say that the same experts, Elon Musk and what's the fellow from OpenAI? I can't think of his name off the top of the head, but a fellow from OpenAI have both said, everything's going to be way cheaper. Now, if everything becomes way cheaper, that gives you deflation, which economists hate, governments hate, because it means that you actually lower the GDP if everything's way cheaper, because we measure GDP by how much everything costs. We do adjust it for inflation, and you could sort of adjust it for deflation, but it gets a bit strange trying to handle deflation. And there's always this thing that if you have deflation, then people wait to buy things until they get cheaper.
Yeah, so we could come to a stage where robots are working for the equivalent of $1 or $2 an hour, and then if you're a human worker, you'll have to work for $1 or $2 an hour. Otherwise, you'll be out of the job because a robot will work cheaper than you. Yeah,
as I said, it's a whole minefield, and it takes a lot to go into. There's some very good material, and maybe put some links in the bottom to some follow-up material and do a follow-up video.
Yeah, because it will be disturbing for maybe my children's generation when they're going for a job, and if they have to compete with not only humans but with robots for the job, it could be something, a very bad outcome for the human race, I would think.
Well, it's complex. It's a really difficult transition to manage. There is this, there is a truth to it that with robots producing things, we can produce more wealth than we produce now as a species, and thus have more wealth per person if we can just manage to distribute that wealth. But distributing the wealth while people are actually not themselves productive is a questionable outcome. It's like, how do we become productive in this new world? And, it's at the same time, you've got Elon Musk saying he wants compensation of $55 billion to help Tesla grow these things. Well, we actually can't. The world doesn't have enough resources for each to have $55 billion worth of wealth. So you still have this equation of who gets what, and the rules for that become very tricky if people aren't working.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of
So as I said, it's a
questions.
whole can of worms.
Big can of worms. It's going to be an industrial revolution like we've never seen. So
yeah, I think we'll see. I mean, if you think of the amount of development there was in the 20th century, and I saw this video of this old woman asked about what in the 20th century she felt was the biggest life-changing invention, and they felt it was the washing machine.
Yeah.
Because at the start of the 20th century, they were sort of beating clothes against a rock, basically.
Yeah,
and you think of how far and how many changes there have been in the 20th century. Well, we could progress that level of change again in just 2 or 3 decades. Now, I know it's only 3 times faster, but boy, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because I do like the analogy of when we go back to the 19th and 20th century where they say, well, now it's our turn to be the horses. Do you want to, can you go into that a bit deeper?
Yeah, well, Tony Seba, and I've got a video which we can put a link to that also gives a link to the Tony Seba one, or give the Tony Seba. It's not a video from Tony Seba. It's a web page, but he comes up with the analogy that from around about 2015, I think it was, or 2012. Oh, sorry, not 1915. From around about 1915, for the next 17 years, horses went from doing all the hauling of transport basically in America to doing almost none.
In how many years was that?
They became totally superseded in a short time.
Yeah.
And, if you take that analogy with Elon Musk, where there'll be fewer jobs that a robot can't do better, then Tony Seba's analogy is that, and he has all the costings of how a robot can cost an employer, very soon will cost an employer only $1 an hour to hire, and be able to work better at the jobs we have currently than a human within just 2 decades.
Wow. So 20 years time, there's going to be, we can see some big changes happening. So we better be ready.
Prediction, and Elon Musk backed it up and agreed with it. It wasn't originally his prediction. But someone was saying that by 2040, there'd be at least 1 billion humanoid robots in the world.
Right. Let's hope not. Not that soon.
Yeah, it's an interesting production figure. So that's in, sort of 25 years, roughly.
Yeah.
No, 15 years. 15 years. So you work out how many that is a year. Well, we currently build 80 million cars a year. So we could ramp up to the scale to build them at that sort of rate, but we're not going to start tomorrow. So it's going to be fast to do it. The theory is that a robot that a humanoid robot should reach the point where it costs less than half a car does quite soon, and it's got less than half the total amount of metal and bits in it.
Oh, well, we're going to leave our viewers with those scary thoughts if they want to have a think about all those sorts of things. And
ask questions potentially.
Yeah, it's going to be a scary
world.
To
see follow-up.
Yeah. So if you're if you'd like us to talk more about this topic, I'm sure Ian's quite happy to delve into this a bit more. But it's not looking good for the human race, I would have to say.
Well, it's not so certain, I would say. It's risky, but it could look good.
Yeah. We're either out of work and living a great life because we don't have to work because we've got our robot doing our work for us, or someone's taken all the robots and taken all the money and we're living on the street.
The extreme is that those horses will, in the end, we stopped breeding horses and people stopped wanting horses, and the population of horses really fell quickly. And if you have a society where humans are actually a cost to the government instead of currently a way of earning more tax dollars per person to the government, governments might go from wanting anything they can to grow the population to wanting to shrink the population. So it's an interesting. There's a lot of possibilities of the future there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we might wrap that one up. That's a lot of. I got to say, that's probably the most daunting conversation I've ever had. To be honest, when I start to think about where the future's going and what legacy we're going to leave our children.
But getting back to the cars, I mean, it should make cars keep getting cheaper and keep getting more and more capabilities.
Yeah, but it's not. As you said, well, as we know, it's not going to stop at cars. It's going to keep going. So I don't know. Hopefully, everything goes cheaper, and we still have jobs. But yeah, only time will tell. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Ian. Thanks for some
Chris.
Very interesting conversation tonight, and I hope everyone enjoyed that one. And we'll see you in the next chat that we have. Bye for now.
Bye.